Hello and welcome to Rubbin Minds. I am your guest host, Hero Daniels. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon and it's been quite an interesting week. We're still awaiting the results, the final results of the Anambra state elections. And I've got some good news. The police confirmed that 16 victims of the Uni Abuja abduction has been released. And so we're very happy to hear that. And I can only imagine what they have gone through. Yeah, I think we should really try as much as possible to see what we can do about the security situation in the country. Today we'll be talking about cyberbullying. I remember one of my biggest fears was going back to a boarding house in my secondary school because of Senior Aban. So Senior Aban was a school bully. He would take my provisions, verbally abuse me, and make me sing Celine Dion songs to him while he was eating my golden morn and cabin biscuits. So if you ever wondered why I have such a great singing voice, it's all thanks to Senior Aban. With the advent of the internet and social media, you're just one click away from being a cyber bully. It's so easy. All you just need is a phone and some cheap data. With me in the studio to discuss cyberbullying is a media personality, an entrepreneur extraordinaire, Tolani Badge. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, also joining me from Abuja is Hawa. Okay, we're going to hold on. We're going to hold on to that. We'll connect with Hawa later. So, Tolani, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good.
Okay, so let's get straight into it.
Okay.
At what point would one say another person is being bullied on the internet?
I would say at a point where your mental health is being tampered with, a point where you feel like maybe your self-esteem is kind of shaky. I did have an experience growing up, though, in America. I feel like in America, it was a case of me being too Nigerian for Americans. And then when I moved back to Nigeria, I started primary school, secondary school, I was too American for Nigerians. So
you couldn't quite fit in?
I couldn't fit in. Even to now, I don't even try to fit in anymore. But it was more so the accent. So I moved back to Nigeria from America, and then it's like, oh, why are you talking like that? You're forming. So I would always hate when teachers would ask me questions in class. I'll keep quiet, nothing. I wouldn't even want to make friends because in my mind I'm like, okay, this one will probably say I'm forming, whatnot. And then after Big Brother as well, we all have to deal with online bullying, the trolls, whatnot. But then I've just decided to block the noise. I block a lot of people because I feel like my mental health comes first. I'm a happy person. I don't tolerate disrespect. If I feel like you're talking to me in a disrespectful manner, I'll speak to you about it like, no, that's not polite. So yeah, blocking is very essential though for
Okay. Okay, so I think we need to also make certain things very clear. So we live in a generation where savage is the new cool, in the sense that, you can sort of make witty comments about a certain issue. So at what point do you think one should draw the line between being savage, quote and unquote, for fun, or being funny for fun, and being an actual bully? Because sometimes, the fans, the people disguised with, I just did catch cruise. They'll tell you, oh, I'm just catching cruise. So what is that fine thin line between making jokes and being an actual bully?
Disrespect, I think that's where you have to draw the line. Personally, boundaries is also very important as well. I like to set the tone and I like to set boundaries as well. Because, when see finish enters the matter, people tend to say, okay, this one, if I say this rude comment, this person will just, assume that I'm catching cruise. But setting the tone with boundaries is very, very important. So always speak up and say, guy, I don't like that comment. Or girl, no, I don't tolerate that. This is not how I roll. So communication is very essential as well. So, and then if you don't now know the person, if the person is a true, you block them because in honest and truly, these people don't know you and you don't know them. So.
Okay, so let's talk about your mental health
Okay.
and the mental health of a lot of people that have experienced bullying.
Okay.
It's so easy to say, yes, we have a tough skin. It's so easy to say that we've gotten used to certain things, but I'm pretty sure that at least the first few moments you experience bullying in any form, be it online, be it physical, it sort of takes you on a journey mentally. I don't know if you can help us describe that mental journey for you.
Honestly, I do have a tough skin. Growing up and being bullied just molded me to the person that I am today. I will say that I'm pretty confident. So with bullying, but in the house I did have anxiety though. I suffer from anxiety and it's not something that I spoke about, which I probably should have immediately I got out of the house. So people tend to say, oh, you're very different in the house, whatnot, you're different now, this, that. And I'm like, guy, anxiety was happening to me. I just felt like, people would misjudge me or, perceive me in the wrong way. So I just said, let me just deal with myself. So yeah, anxiety, no. But now I'm dealing with it. I have a therapist. I'm on some meds as well. So yeah, anxiety is
Let me
good.
get this straight.
Yeah,
You see a therapist now,
yeah.
and you're also on.
Some anxiety medication as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that is as a result of the bullying at some
Just
point. And
mental health, improving my mental health. Yeah, I wouldn't say bullying, but it's more so improving my mental health. Yeah, because this is not a topic that people talk about publicly.
yeah,
So I don't see anything wrong with people having a little bit of mental cases right there. So if you notice that you have some mental issues, you just deal with it. Yeah.
okay, so I'm going to connect with Hawa now. Hawa is a mental health advocate
Okay.
and executive.
Hawa.
Hello, Hawa. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so you are a mental health expert. Can you tell us the effect of bullying on, people's mental health?
Oh, yes, I believe that this is such a very important topic. Bullying, as we have known it traditionally, has happened maybe within school systems physically, so in-person kind of interactions. But as we moved more and more into a digital world, we have seen that cyberbullying has become the thing. So it's not so much that it's new, it's that what happened offline now happens online. And so just the same way people would get upset, it affects their self-esteem. It causes, that fight or flight mode, that sense of anxiety, intense anxiety. We're seeing it online as well. So whether you like it or not, whether you create all of the boundaries and whether, you feel like you're so mentally grounded, the thing about cyberbullying is that if it is directed at you, and sometimes maybe not directed particularly at you, and it just happens within your cyber environment, it has an effect on you. It makes you feel anxious. It makes you feel worried. Because the thing about cyberbullying is that, it involves a lot of embarrassment and a lot of shame. In fact, it feeds off shame. It's how can you make somebody feel small and embarrassed in a large group of people where they begin to look at not that they did something wrong, but they are something wrong. And so that is something that's particularly important. I think a lot of people are going through severe social anxiety because of experiences with regards to cyberbullying and offline bullying as well, but also what they experience as what we may call like ratio or clapback and things like that. And people are trying to, everybody's looking for an outlet for their problems, but in doing that, they are inflicting problems on other people in order to feel good about themselves. And so it's not so much about just the person who is the target, it's really about even the bully themselves as well.
Okay, so you made a statement that sometimes even when the bullying is not directed at you as an individual, if it's directed at someone else, the fact that it's in your social space, it means that it can also have a level of mental impact on you. So in a situation whereby somebody sees that his timeline or her timeline on social media has a lot of toxicity, what should one do? Okay.
So I lost the first part of your questions, but I'll just answer. I believe your question was really what can one do with a lot of toxicity that's happening online
On
on the
social
internet,
media, even
and in
if
the
the bullying is
cyberspace,
not
really.
directed at you.
True, true. I would say first off, we need to realize that we don't have as much power as we think that we have over our cyber environment. Everybody feels like, oh, you know what? I curate my timeline, which is a fantastic strategy. I follow the kinds of people that, make me feel good and all of that, which is fantastic. But I need you to realize that the way social media platforms and all of the digital spaces in particular have been created is that, behavioral scientists have sat down for years with grounded research-backed data, and they've created these platforms in a way that regardless of how much you think they are small, they can have an effect on you. So whatever it is that you need to do, you need to ensure that it is more preventative than reactive, because the moment it already starts to seep in, the moment you start to give your digital, cyber, social spaces any sort of power, that power comes back even in the form of cyberbullying. So yes, I would say you need to begin to curate your cyber environment. You can't just say it doesn't get to me, so I'll just block and all of that, which are fantastic strategies, because for some people, how much can you do, especially when you're in the public, you're a public figure, and a lot of people follow you and things like that.
Yeah.
You really need to be very intentional about curating your timeline. The people, the topics, the words that get to you, you need to learn to mute, you need to learn to unfollow, you need to learn to block. Those are very healthy things to do. But you also need to realize that your usage of social media does something to your brain chemicals as well. It's like, some studies liken it to how, people who use substances get that sense of high and
Yeah.
shock
Social
from
media
using drugs.
addiction.
The likes, the follows, it gives you something. And the moment there is a threat to your likes, your followership, and all of that, it's like something just, it goes straight to your core. Like, instead of it being just about your social media platform, it's about you, because you have equated yourself to the image that you have portrayed. And so the moment you relinquish that power that should be inside yourself, people can take advantage of that power. In fact, people don't need to know they're doing it,
Yeah.
but they will do it. So yes, it's all about intentionality. For some people, it is cutting down their social media usage. It's about
Yeah.
realizing that, you know what, I cannot spend more than 2 to 4 hours on social media every day. I need to realize the effect it has on me. And that doesn't mean that I am weak or I'm not somebody who is strong mentally or anything. It just means that you're a human being. And social media platforms have hacked the science of your brain, and they know
Okay.
how to use it. They know how to
So
make it important to you.
very, very true. We're going to talk about what the social media companies are doing to regulate bullying. So, but first, I need to talk to Tolani because Howard made a point and said, sometimes when you're so engrossed with the celebrity life, the likes, the comments, it sort of engulfs you and draws you in. Now, as a celebrity, how would you say, okay, I think I need to rephrase this question. For example, if you do something or something happens that is out of your control, and let's say that the society has deemed that particular act as not satisfactory, yeah? And then people start coming at you. At that point in time,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what you did was right or what you did was wrong, but like I said, the society perceived it wrongly. So at that point in time when people are coming at you, how does one handle it? Because very recently we've seen a lot of celebrities,
Get dragged on social media.
get dragged on social
Yes.
media.
Okay, so from my own perspective, let's talk about early this year when, the reunion happened and I was getting drags left and right. It was overwhelming, I would say. And normally I just block, but it was a lot. So what I decided to do was take a break from social media, which, sometimes I do want to take like a week, 2 weeks break off social media, but I can't because social media is my job. So during that time where I was getting heat from everybody, I went on a break, 2-3 weeks, not 2-3 days break. I would check comments here and there. If I say, okay, the heat is still there, go off again, whatnot. But I would read some comments and just think like, damn, this is tough, But at the end of the day, we're still human beings as well. I think people tend to forget that because we're in the public eye, so we get crucified a lot. But yeah, breaks are very necessary. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Yes.
And like I said, there's always a very thin line between what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
Some people might argue that maybe there are certain actions of celebrities that warrant people's reaction, and when they get that reaction, it should be justified. Now, let me make certain things clear.
Yeah.
So while during the reunion, particularly, the content that you served on that platform, for some people on the other side, because with Big Brother there's always a divide.
Of
So
course.
some people would argue that you're being dragged because of you dragged certain people on the show. So in a situation like that,
Yeah.
where people are justifying bullying you just because of they perceive
Please.
that for some reason, you had issues or altercations with another person. So I'm just using you as an example, but there are several examples. So in such a situation, how do we sensitize people to, let them know that you're first a human being before an idol that they expect to be perfect?
So first of all, I think as a celebrity, it comes with the territory being dragged. So with the hate still comes the love. And you know what they say, if people don't talk about you, then you're nobody, really. So I do know that a lot of entertainers do things intentionally to get dragged. just to be in blogs and whatnot. If you're getting dragged, you're still going to get business deals, whatnot. So the trolls, what they have to say, the content doesn't really matter because it's not affecting your bag. So how did I forget your question?
No,
I was
all
deriving somewhere.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is
Yeah.
how can we demystify celebrities so that people can start cutting them some slack? Because
Yeah.
let's take for example the Tiwa Savage video.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love Tiwa.
So Tiwa, it was
Yeah.
an honest mistake. It wasn't something that she expected to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
But societally and culturally, some people perceive it as not ideal. But they forget that Tiwa is a human being that makes mistakes.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, how can we tell people, or how can we demystify that high standard that the fans or the
Yeah.
people set for people for public figures?
Honestly speaking, I feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy in the world, in Nigeria most especially. How she got crucified, it was an honest mistake, but I felt like people just wanted to leverage on that and have something to say. So with that being said, honestly, we're just human beings. We're going to make mistakes and we're still going to continue our life. That's what's going to happen. So people can say what they have to say and then guess what? The next day, moved on. So, and I love Tiwa, by the way. Love you.
We all do. We all do.
Yes.
Hawa, what do you think social media companies are doing to regulate cyberbullying?
So we're seeing more companies. I mean, last year we saw Twitter step on a couple of toes. Last year, the year before, we saw it in the U.S. with how they clamped down on the president then, Donald Trump. We saw it and how it caused an uproar with Nigeria as well, with President Muhammadu Buhari as well. But I think that those are even larger figures that are able to do things that happen on a larger scale. There are policies, yes, but I believe that one of the challenges that stands between the users and the service providers, which are the social media platforms, is perspective. What can be qualified as maybe targeted harassment? What can be qualified as bullying? Is it a matter of, is it subjective from person to person? Because if you qualify, and for example, the Nigerian Cybercrimes Act also makes mention of a couple of things. But if you mention, something causes embarrassment, what is embarrassment, in that context to me versus somebody else? And at what point do we have a universal standard that says that when you cross this particular line, then, that is qualified as cyberbullying or something like that? I actually think that the conversation is much deeper than that. I believe that no matter how much you regulate, it's not so much about, all of these big things. And I say this from the mental health perspective. It comes down to the so-called little things. It comes down to intolerance. It comes down to the fact that as a people, and I want to speak particularly about the Nigerian context, and let me just use Twitter, Nigerian Twitter, for example. It is this idea, and I'm not saying it's a Nigerian Twitter thing in that sense, but I'm saying it's something I've observed on Nigerian Twitter, is the fact that we feel like, my reality must be the reality of everyone else. If these are my values, then it is on these values that I will use to judge every single person. And so we measure everybody on the basis of our individual values. And so that reduces our ability to be tolerant of one another or to accommodate each other. And we see that happen. So cyberbullying is just one avenue through which it happens. It's not the whole thing, really. It's just one thing. And so it's less about, are they going to create the standards? But it's more about how can we begin to understand why people even bully in the first place? What is it that makes it so uncomfortable for them to sit in that discomfort in order for them to actually, respond to somebody else from a place of kindness?
Thank you very much, Hawa. I really wish we could, exhaust this, but it's a very, very long topic. But thank you so much for joining me today. And Tolani, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I'm not going to stand on a high horse. I think at some point I made a joke at a particular celebrity. It was just a really honest joke. But later on, I had some reactions online. I had to apologize simply because I understood that the other person did not feel good, and I had to apologize. So let's all be human. Rubbin Minds continues after this break.